Well, it's 3:32, and I'd been advised that that is our starting time. Good afternoon. My name is Troy Lee, and I'm the president of Savoy House. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you a distinguished and varied panel of showroom executives, moderated by Mr. Pete Romaniello, who will address success stories and lessons learned from the pandemic. The panel will answer the key questions: what are the needs and ramifications of this new reality, and how can you pivot to thrive under new unforeseen conditions? What are the trends of new product demands, and how can you take advantage of the building material boom? What will this mean for the future of remote work? Please welcome our panelists, our moderator, Mr. Peter Romaniello, founder and owner of Conceptual Lighting, a nationally recognized award-winning diverse architectural and theatrical lighting design firm. Mr. Alan Katz, Vice President of Sales for Quoizel, a good friend of ALA and the industry and supporting so many measures that we have with the association. Mr. Chris Quackenbush, immediate past chair of ALA Board of Governors, and we appreciate for his service, and president of the Carlson Group in Folsom, California, one of the most successful and noted lighting manufacturer representatives in the industry. And Ms. Lori Groth, president of Gross Electric, a lighting showroom chain with presences in Ohio and Michigan. Lori has vast experience in owning and operating and managing a family enterprise through the evolution and changes, the many evolutions and changes in our retail wholesaling industry that have occurred. So we welcome our panel. You can tell with the diversity of experience and talent that it will be the genesis of a very enlightened and thoughtful conversation. So I'll now turn it over to our very competent moderator, Peter.
Thanks, Troy. Really appreciate it. And hey, everybody, thanks for taking time out of your day to do this. It's a little bit different than Lake Tahoe, but I think this still works. We've been working on putting together some really good questions for you, and I can tell you that every time that we've had our discussions together, just as a group, it has become a really awesome, just very conversational response to things. And so the point of this today, obviously, is we're going to ask some questions. It's not going to be a very structured, hey, everybody answers the same thing. But what we've found is that it always kind of brings up some very interesting insights, because we have all different aspects of the lighting industry here. So we're going to have questions at the end if anybody is interested, and I know that you can submit them either through the chat or Liz can get them to us at the end. So when we first started talking about this, just a quick background, you know, we all know that all of our lives have been changed a little bit, our business has been changed a little bit, and we really wanted to focus on the successes of how we've been all been able to get through this, and how to look forward. And you know, it's very easy to look at it and go, oh my God, not another thing, how are we going to get hit in the head again? But really look at it more in terms of, all right, how do we head this off? How do we make sure that we have everything in line so that the next thing to come and try to tackle us, we can hit it straight on. So not in any particular order, I want to ask Lori this first, and the reason I want to ask you this is that it's very, very specific, I think, to customer interaction. Obviously, all of us have customers of different ilk, right? But you have the direct, I would say, the direct contact with what I call normal people, right? Not people in the industry.
That's a matter of opinion.
Yeah, exactly. None of us are normal, right? So Lori, what steps have you taken to educate your staff and entice your new employees to keep them engaged with everything going on?
So we've spent a lot of time and energy on education over the last 2 years. Well, we always have spent time and energy on education. We've worked a lot on the customer service aspect. We just had a consultant in 2 weeks ago for the whole company that spoke about customer service, which was great because it wasn't just about the face-to-face customer. It was for the warehouse, it was for the office, it was for everybody. And they really got a lot out of that. One of the ways we've kept our staff engaged is by, they're part of the process. One of the things we did last year was we redid our whole showroom. And as part of that, we engaged all the staff to give their opinions, to give their help, to, feel like they were part of the team and really participating. And we've continued that on now. So they help pick what we're going to buy. They help figure out how we're going to merchandise it. They help decide, does this product make sense? Where should we put it? And that type of stuff. So there's a lot of ownership there that maybe wasn't going on before. And that's really helped us. We've done a chat feature on our website, and different staff people participate in that. So they get to hear what customers are asking, what customers are looking for, and everything like that. And I think one of the biggest things we've done is we communicate more. When we went all through this last year, I don't know about you guys, but we were lucky because in Ohio, they kept construction open. So we were open through the whole thing. But what I found is that I had to send out an email just about every single day. Okay, we're doing this policy. Okay, it's tomorrow. Now we're doing this policy. Oops, sorry. Now we're going to do this policy. And so we were communicating constantly. And I think that has really helped us now because we're communicating all the time. Our people know about the supply chain issues. They're passing that on to customers. Customers are so much more local oriented. It's great. So my salespeople have learned how to emphasize that. Well, we're 111 years old and we're still family owned, and we've really pushed all that. So I think that communication has helped us in our interaction with the real everyday people. And I'm also finding the real everyday people are so happy we're here. The appreciation of that local presence. I was talking to my showroom director, Michelle, earlier today, just to make sure I knew my points and what I was talking about, to make sure I had it all clear in my head. And we were saying, 3 years ago, we were wondering if there was still going to be a place for a retail showroom because the online had taken so much of the market and it was killing us. And what we found is people now, they're just walking in the door. Can you get it for me? Do you have it? We're really emphasizing buying what's in stock when we went to market. So we can say to them, yes, we have it, or no, we can tell you exactly when you're going to get it. And they're just so much more appreciative than they used to be. So I think I answered your question.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And by the way, you don't look a day over 110,
Thank you. Especially on Zoom, which is just the most flattering place to see yourself,
lighting.
Right?
It's the lighting.
Yeah, well, I'm doing the best I can. It's not perfect, but it's the best I can do.
I think it's really interesting what you said, that the people want to come in, right? I think that to a certain extent, we've all gotten somewhat sick of all this online stuff, and we realize how important it is to actually interact with a person, and that it's okay to interact with a person. But I think that, so actually, let me ask you one more follow-up with that. Have you had to do anything to make your customers that come in, to make them feel comfortable with that face-to-face interaction?
So Ohio is okay. Michigan, I'd say in Michigan, at least 50% of our customers come in masked.
Yep.
We did put our shields back up a few weeks ago, maybe a month and a half ago. For a while, we were asking people to mask when they had that, first Delta surge come through. But now we just try and be responsive to a customer. So if we see a customer come in masked, we'll say, would you like us to mask? 99% of the time it's no, I'm just doing it for myself. Okay, great. But we work really hard to say, would you like me? We try and stay a little bit further away. Would you like us to mask? Are you comfortable with us doing that? And most people are just great with it, but that's what we're trying to do to make sure, we still have the sanitizer by the doors. We still have little signs in the bathrooms. We have all that stuff. So that's how we're trying to do it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So dovetailing into that, that whole nasty word of word supply chain came up. We have to hear supply chain. That's going to be like, we've kind of tried to cross COVID out of our minds, and now it's like supply supply chain every 5 seconds. So Alan and Chris, I'm going to ask both of you this. And Alan, why don't you go first? Only because it's alphabetical. How have the changes to supply changes, raw material costs, shipping and manufacturing affected your relationship with your clients and your customers? And obviously your clients and your customers are not the direct end user, but everybody that you sell to is still a customer. So Alan, how have you guys had to deal with that?
Yeah, so it is a topic that we continue to talk about and just won't go away. And so just to hit on the supply chain, it's affected every part of it. And so where it used to be when we had a problem with goods, it was always that the manufacturer was slow to produce them. That's not the issue this time. The issue is that it's not just getting the boat out of the getting the product from the factory onto the container, but even when it hits the port in Charleston, which is where we're at, it's slow to get out of the port. It's slow to get truckers to pick it up. So it's affected, all parts of that. Not to mention, as you suggested, pricing. So we used to have, a real fixed cost in container costs, and now that's become a real variable cost. That's so the spread is so wide. Whereas we had a $3,000 cost, we're now anywhere from $12,000 up to $25,000 to land a container. So it makes it very difficult, right, with our dealers. Like, how do we price goods? Because it's all over the place and we don't know where it stops. But I'd say one of the big challenges to the end consumer is just our ability to give our dealers and the sales associates a good time frame on when they're going to receive product, right? Because our problem was a system issue where it would show that it was landed, it would show it in inventory, but it wasn't in our door, so we couldn't ship it. So that was one of the things that we're working through. So you talk about like one of the learned lessons is we just have to really change the lead time significantly, regardless of what it says, because it says how long it takes to get there, but it's not getting in our door. So, and that's a real problem, right? You want to satisfy the consumer, and a lot of people, most people I think are fine as long as you give them good information. And so we're trying to just get better information to our dealers, thus the consumer. And we're still working through that. It's because it's constantly changing.
And Chris, how have you seen it happen?
Yeah, very obviously very similar to what Alan has described. But I think as a rep, what we try to do as an agency is really help on both sides, on the vendor side and on the customer side, help them with their material as best as we can to get, to obviously see if we can get the product shipped out or whatever it may be. It's for us, it's a daily issue. We get up in the morning, there's never, a clean email box saying, hey, everything's been shipped. We're all good. I mean, it's pretty much loaded up right when we first get up in the morning to help customers out. I think the biggest thing that we've done as an agency, we call on obviously lighting showrooms, and we have a lot of builder accounts and builder work that we do, is just to make sure we communicate and manage the expectation as best we can. I think when this first hit, nobody really knew the logistical supply chain problem or how big it was going to become. I'm talking maybe 15, 16 months ago. Now I can kind of safely say that most customers understand from really all channels what we're dealing with, just because it's always been, it's in the press now, and people see the pictures of the containers and whatnot. But Alan tipped on a good point. I mean, what happens is a lot of our manufacturers, they will say that the product's coming in on a certain date, and it may be on the boat, or maybe offloaded. We get most of our stuff out of Long Beach. It may be offloaded and sitting in the parking lot somewhere. So they've had to move those dates. So it's very, very difficult to explain to a customer, an end user, that, hey, you said it was going to come in, in 2 weeks, and we had to push it back. So it's just making sure that we communicate and manage the expectation as best as possible. As a rep agency, that's what we try to do.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the managing expectations, because, as all of us know, that customer, that definition of customer keeps kind of like dwindling down until it gets to the end user, and working its way back up. I mean, Lori, you have to deal with this because you have, either a homeowner or an electrician who's screaming at a homeowner that's saying, get it here, get it here, get it here, and they want to close on their house and get it all finished. And so it then works back up the chain, right? So you're going to Chris, and then Chris is going to Alan, and it's like, what do we do? And so that transparency, as an independent lighting designer, I feel that because I'll get an email or a call from either my client or from the contractor saying, hey, you spec'd out these fixtures, we can't get them for another 2 months. What are we going to do? And so you've got to have alternate solutions. So I think that the most important thing is being as transparent as possible. And that, obviously works its way all the way down and all the way back up. I still find it amazing that, after we've all been in this for a million years, right? After all this time, it's still a situation where, let's say, a contractor thinks that there's 300 of a recessed fixture just sitting in stock somewhere on a shelf that happens to have 15 different driver options and color temperature options and beam spread options. And so why don't you have it right there? And yet if you order furniture, or if you order kitchen cabinets, let's say anything else that's in this home construction industry, it's 16 weeks or 18 weeks or whatever, but it's like, why don't you stock it? So that transparency is probably the most important thing that we can deal with. What about profitability? I would say, Lori, let's start with you on this, because we're all in business to be profitable in some way, shape, or form. I find that it's become more and more challenging for every business to be profitable. And as most of us are either in business for ourselves or we run our companies, how do you find that you've dealt with staying either as profitable as you were or becoming more profitable?
Well, I mean, I think that there's two parts to it. If you look at the retail lighting showroom business, we've had to provide more service the last year. We're spending more time on the service end than we are on the selling end now. We were just joking the other day that 75% of our calls right now are customers checking on orders that we're still checking on constantly anyway. And so the time we used to just spend selling now, you got to add almost an extra 2 hours just to keep checking with vendors. So that part is harder in terms of sales, we're artificially limited. I have no complaints about IMAP, because without IMAP, I'm not sure how many of us would still be around, because it would just be a free-for-all. On the other hand, it limits what you can really make in the decorative lighting industry, because whatever IMAP is pretty much what you're selling retail for. And everybody, it's kind of like health insurance. There's a retail rate and there's what Medicare expects. So in our industry, there's IMAP, and then there's what the builders and the designers, and everybody thinks, you don't want me to pay what the retail is paying. So it's a much more transparent business than it used to be. That being said, we're probably more profitable now than we've been in a long time. Government money helps a lot. It makes a big difference when the government pays everybody's salaries for a year. That helps a lot. And people's appreciation for us and coming in and just, one of my stores, it's not as price sensitive a market, and they just want to know we have it, that we're going to get it to them, and there's somebody there to help them pick it out. And then it's like, okay, I'm buying it. I can't remember the last time I've just had customers just walking in the door saying, you've got it, I'll take it. We're not sitting here seeing them go online and try and figure it out, because they're just so thrilled somebody has something. They just want to walk out the door. So I would say overall, the last 2 years have been good years for us.
Have you found that you are purchasing more product up front to make sure that you have it?
Yes, so that's the sales end. And then there's the inventory. So I'm also an electrical distributor. I
Right.
think most people on this call knows what's gone on with copper wire this year. My inventory, we figured it out the other day. Just the cost increase in our inventory has raised our inventory valuation almost 25 to 35%. So between that and the fact that I know Alan talked about, if we take a Quasel outdoor fixture, if I know it's in stock in that factory and I normally sell 10 a month, I'm going to order 20 because I'm hoping that someone's going to come in and buy it. And now I'm going to have those there. And so our inventory is definitely the highest it's ever been. So when I get to the very bottom line, I have to factor that in, and it definitely hurts. On the other hand, it helps because I'm really working hard to just keep stuff in inventory.
And Alan, how have you find it with, making sure that the fixture end of it stays profitable for you guys when again, everything is so price conscious, right? But now you have an increase in the cost of materials and you have an increase in the cost of shipping. And Chris, this is for you too. I mean, it's, when you look at amortizing the shipping cost over 150 fixtures, let's say on a pallet, how does that get impacted when everybody is also concerned about keeping costs down as much as possible? Either one of you guys.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely been challenging, and I guess I'd answer it a couple of ways. So one is, just as a business, probably any manufacturer, we've been talking about looking outside of China, right? And we were talking about that before the pandemic happened, just as how do we diversify our manufacturing base? And although we have multiple manufacturers in China, they were all in China. And due to COVID, we really haven't had the opportunity to do that because you can't really travel freely to explore those places, whether that be India, Malaysia, Vietnam. And so, and also with that said, even if we could, it's a long process because it's all in China, right? So it's not an easy thing to move. But with the tariff, right, that started, with the tariff. So the tariff just added 25% right off the bat. That's not even talking about raw material costs and things like that. So, you have to look at things like, how do you, can you KD fixtures? Can you find a way to get a smaller box, right? Because so much of this is in the box. And when it's on a smaller product that's in a sizable box, that's when you take the biggest hit as the highest percentage of that cost. So it's there's no easy answer other than we all do need to increase our prices. So just as the supplier will increase their price, the dealer will increase their price. And I don't think it's such a horrible thing because most of us are in China, so we're all doing it. Sure. And for years, we've only seen deflation in this business. I mean, I know I'm dating myself and I'm not that old, but I grew up in the business. And when we sold Frederick Raymond chandeliers in like 1984, they were $700 chandeliers. That was all day long. And that was like 30 years ago. So we're not even back there yet. So the fact that we're all sort of in the same field and that we're all, selling product out of China, it's not such a bad thing. I mean, I think it will help us all to make more money as prices go up, that we're not fighting with, $199, chandeliers for a dining room. They're getting more money in other accessories in the home, and why not lighting? So it's really not a bad thing, but it's, the big thing is that you have to make sure you have a diversified manufacturing base. You got to make sure you keep all of those guys honest, right? By checking price in different places. And then you do need to increase your prices. I mean, we all need to make the margins to support our business. So, and again, I don't think it's a bad thing.
And Chris, how would you say, like, I think if there was anything that cut into your profitability, my initial guess would be that it's shipping costs. Do you think that that's the biggest thing that affects you, or is it something else?
Well, so I'd have to tell you, Peter, that really the shipping costs, they don't affect my profitability all that much.
Okay.
So what we do as an agency, or what we, what are the key things I think you need to look at in terms of, from the rep side, is making sure you're aligned with vendors and manufacturers that that are able to navigate through all the, this whole situation that we're in, and that they have the product to ship, and for the most part, we're very lucky that our group of companies that we represent are able to do, be very creative and able to get the products to us, to our customers as best they can. And also, as Alan touched, and Lori too, is being diversified too, having a diversified portfolio of products to be able to offer. That has really helped our profitability. As Lori had mentioned, the last couple of years, let's face it, it's been really good. I mean, people have been buying homes, people have been building homes, people have been remodeling homes. I don't think anybody I certainly didn't expect it in March of 2020, when this thing got shut down, that we would be selling as much product as we have sold. So that's been great, of course, but obviously we've named all the challenges that it's created. But I would have to say that profitability should be measured on those metrics.
Do you find that because, let's say, for the better part of a year, you couldn't have your staff travel as much? Did that help your profitability by being able to do Zoom meetings and contact your customers that way? Most
definitely. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, obviously you're not in your car traveling. You couldn't go see a customer physically. So, you're not spending the kind of money that you would have normally been spending if you're out on the road. I mean, the Zoom meetings have been or Teams, Microsoft Teams, we use a lot too.
Yeah,
have been very effective. Nothing replaces, obviously face-to-face interactions, and over the last probably 6 months or so, we've been really fairly aggressive getting out in the territory and seeing the people. But what I find with the Zoom or the Microsoft Teams situation, and when you're meeting with a customer, is to me, it helps focus everyone. It helps focus me as a rep, and it helps focus the customer. And also when we have our meetings with our vendors too. So.
Yeah, I find it interesting even on my end, because our projects are all over the place, and I've actually, oddly enough, found two really, really good things from this. Again, thinking positive. And I would also say, thank God we haven't had a single moment where we've been slow. And I learned in the 2008 recession, rich people always have money. And fortunately, my clients are, that. Sometimes they're nice, sometimes not. But but what I found, actually two things very interesting, because I get hired by architects a lot, and architects, especially up in New England, where they used to be very buttoned up and not very friendly, even though I've worked with them forever. When you see them in their kitchen with a baseball cap on, drinking a cup of coffee, right? It's like they're people. And they've let down a little bit of their barrier, which I have found to be very interesting. And the other thing that I've found is that, after 25 years, I have been able to explain my designs so much more frequently than, hey, here's a set of plans, go do it, and we need them in a week. Now it's like, well, let's take an hour and talk through this floor, or take 2 hours and talk through the whole thing. And I have found that actually to be incredibly beneficial for the whole project. So, looking for the silver lining, those have been very, very good, even though I still travel all the time. It's interesting how, in a weird way, this impersonal way of meeting has actually made people more personable and more willing to sit and listen, which I think is awesome. So, we never know, we never know what's going to go on, right? All I have to do is look at the news every single day. We know there's going to be some other disruption. We just kind of know that. And if you had to say, I'm going to ask all three of you, how can you plan for the next disruption, or can you plan for the next disruption? And when I say that, I would actually categorize it in terms of obviously keeping your business afloat. keeping your employees employed, right? And just doing whatever you can to get through this. So Lori, maybe you can go first.
I guess I don't know how you ever prepare. I mean, we may have seen this, but that didn't mean we knew what was going to happen. I guess you've got to just be good at adaptation. And I think that's what we have shown over the years is, I mean, I'm also a little older, as you said. I may not be 111, but it feels like it some days. And I've found that what has kept us going is that ability to see what's going on and make quick adaptations. So when you look at 2008, 2009, you could see it didn't take long to see that things were going in the tank. Okay, how fast can I cut my expenses? What do I have to do to cut my expenses? You know, with this in the very beginning, you know, we cut everybody's salaries right away because we didn't know what was going to happen. And then we had to do the furloughing, and then we got the money, so we got to bring everybody back. But it's being able to say, how can I cut my expenses as quickly as I can and yet still keep my team engaged? So we used to practice, and we still do to a certain extent, open book management, where we share our numbers with our people.
Mhm.
And so when everybody knows that you're being as open and as honest as you can be, and you just look at them and say, guys, you can see nobody's walked in the door in 3 days. I'm going to have to cut some salaries. I've got to figure out what to do. We're going to have to run a sale. We're going to have to cut some people. And they're like, whatever it takes to keep the business operating. And that's how I felt our team was this last time. When we called everybody back, I mean, even my warehouse, nobody said no. Nobody said I'm not coming back, because we were honest from the beginning, and we always have been. This is what's going on. This is what we got to do to keep going. And they're all like, okay, whatever it takes to keep us going. And I think if we have that team feeling and everybody feels like you care about them and they care about you, that doing those things are in some ways harder, because I hate walking up to the mom who has 2 kids at home and no childcare, and this is what, but they'd rather have me do that than close the doors and not have a job. So I just think it's always having that open communication and being adaptable.
Well, and I think that, you know, everything that you said there, it just gets back to being honest and transparent. And with all the craziness going on, unnamed craziness, with all of that going on, people just want somebody to tell them the truth in whatever aspect of their life it is. And so I mean, I commend you for doing that, because it's so critically important. Chris, how many employees approximately do you guys have?
I have 3 employees.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
And same thing, it's just like, you know, how do we keep it going?
Yeah. So, you know, when the shutdown hit, the first thing I thought of, you know, honestly, at first I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. No one really knew what was going to happen, right? But then when the state shut down, California state shut down, I'm like, okay. So I think, you know, going back to your question, Peter, about, you know, how do you weather the next, you know, situation that may come up, either it's pandemic related or business related. I just harken back to cash is king. Have a substantial amount of working capital and cash on hand at all times, so you could kind of weather the initial onslaught, you know. And then also, I highly suggest, if people don't have this already, most of you guys do, your business got basic business, but a substantial line of credit. So when that shutdown hit, I pulled my line of credit from the bank into my account, just in case they were to say, hey, look, we're not going to give it to you. You know, I got them, put the money in my account right away. And I would suggest that as well. I mean, if something like this ever were to happen again, but cash is king. And as Lori said, you know, it's very important to adapt and pivot, you know, and boy, we had to be on our toes real fast. Had to, you know, honestly, I did not even know how to work Zoom or Microsoft Teams, but I got my employees engaged, and we learned how to do it. We've realized this is how we're going to have to deal with this, deal with our customers and our vendors. So we better learn how to do it. So we did that, and, you know, just making sure that you're able to, you know, just adapt really fast.
Alan, you probably are part of the biggest company, just in terms of, size and number of employees. I mean, how difficult has that got to be? Because you're overseeing so many different things.
Yeah, so well, one is I would agree with both what Chris and Lori said, and I guess what I would add is, one of the things that I always look at is where are you getting the best return on your investment, and where's the worst, and how much are you expending on that thing that's not really giving you a return, and can you shed that, can you get rid of it? And just to give you an example, and it may sound a little odd, but when we looked at our business, we had a lot of accounts that did like less than $5,000, and what that was like a carryover from when we used to sell furniture stores, and maybe even some lighting stores who just weren't really committed to the line. And you don't recognize what a drag that could be on your business, whether it be customer service, whether it be the use of catalogs, all of those things. And so we went through and cut out a lot of those accounts, and it helps preserve resources in other areas. So that was one of the things we did. And if you go back to 2008, and we'll just go back to a recession that again hit like a ton of bricks, we had warehouse space that we were able to rent out. So you take the resources you have and you say, if it's not giving us an ROI, can we get an ROI on it? So those were the things, but certainly I think Holden, cash is king. Cash will help you through any tough time. And then the other part is that you also have to make the right investments, because certainly things turn around. And so, in 2008, when it did come back, we had made investments in inventory, thinking, man, we want to be ready when consumers start to come back and start to shop. We want to be able to, win on the upside of that too. So you got to be careful and make sure you don't buy where it puts you out of business. But if you have nothing and you miss that upside, that's probably equally as bad. So it's finding the balance, but again, just really having a tight understanding of your business and the numbers, so you could see where the opportunities are, what's draining you, and then you have to sometimes make tough decisions. But ultimately, it's about understanding. You got to understand your business, right? You got to understand your margins. You really do need to understand those things. More, you always need to, but even more so in challenging times.
It's funny, all three of your answers, they just come down to basic common sense, good business strategies. And I honestly think that is always what propels businesses to continue to thrive, right? And you find a way. And certainly for those of us that have either started our businesses or have become in charge over some set of circumstances. I mean, we all tend to think the same way. It's like, all right, well, this is coming at me. I've got to figure out a way to do it, and you just kind of like, you put your head down and work. And I know that for us, it was actually very strange, because we were kind of pre-set up for this. We have obviously a design business, and so it's small. It's me and my associate Jody. And before I moved down to North Carolina, she moved out of Connecticut and moved up to New Hampshire. And so we were already working remotely. I was already obviously used to working in a home office with my dogs for 24 years. And so for us, it wasn't that big of a deal. But when this whole thing started with the, 2 weeks back in March of last year, it was like, holy crap, what the hell is going to happen? Because if our business is so directly related to architects and interior designers, if they don't have work, then we don't have work, right? And so I was sitting there going, what the hell is going to happen to us? And I think that for me, I'm the kind of like type A personality, which you guys are too. I'm the type of, it's like, well, screw it, I'm just going to work even harder. And it's like you're going to work on the weekends, you're going to work at night, you're going to do whatever you can, and that I think is what also gets people through. But we all just need to look at it in terms of how do we continue to grow in terms of a smart way to grow. right? And that might be tough decisions. It might not be bringing on people, but it also might mean that you're looking ahead and saying, okay, well, we did this right and we didn't do this right. How do we fix that for, again, whatever might happen? So we keep talking about technology in some way, shape, or form, and obviously these Zoom meetings have been one thing. I have always felt that education is unbelievably important, and when I was saying before that I try to always explain my designs, that becomes educating clients about the importance of lighting and the importance of lighting design. When we think about education, and also the fact that people have gotten so used to these online meetings, whether it's Zoom or Teams, have you thought about, and if you have, how have you increased your role in education, both for your customers and for your staff? Anybody? It's not specific to anyone.
I guess I not quite as much the last few months, but I spent a lot of time on the sales floor, talking to, I do most of the high-end jobs, and then I have a sales associate work with me or team member work with me so that they're learning what I'm doing in terms of education. The industry, we talk about the old days, it's so technical now.
Yeah.
And you really have to have an affinity for it. And I'm lucky that I have a number of people who are, but I spend a lot of time talking to people about the latest and greatest. I'm also finding we're reaching out to more designers, and I'm spending a lot of time in educating them about this is what we do and this is why you need us. And we're starting to see more people come to us. We're doing CAD now. They're coming to us for some of that because they realize there's so much they just don't know, that it's overwhelming. To be fair, I think part of it is they're overwhelmed with the supply chain issues, and it's just one more thing they don't want to worry about. So if I can talk to you and you're going to help me with my lighting design and you can put it in the CAD for me and you can do all that, I don't have to worry about it. Great. I'm going to worry about, can I get a couch in 16 weeks or is it going to take 3 years?
Sure.
So I think that has helped a lot too, but I work really hard with trying to educate our people on the latest and greatest, particularly with LED and recessed and that type of thing.
Lori, it's interesting everything you said there, because I find the same thing when I talk with interior designers and architects. It's amazing, and this is a blanket statement, so I apologize for any that are on this. It's amazing to me that in 2021, architects and interior designers still don't understand color temperature and color rendering. That blows my mind. Really, really blows my mind. And yet, if this was 3-4 years ago, they would be speccing out, let's say, architectural lighting, recess fixtures, things like that, having no clue what that is all about. I ask people about, hey, what's the driver on this? And they're like, what's a driver? And you go, wow. So I have found that actually, thank God, we've always had a good business, but in 2014, when the residential energy codes changed, and architects and interior designers who normally did lighting design, they made a mistake and they had to eat that. Then they were like, no, we need to bring in somebody who knows lighting. And our business went from, good to holy crap, just because of that technology. And so, I think that to a certain extent, Alan and Chris, your job, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your job is to educate your customers, right? Which would be Lori and her staff.
Right.
And then Lori has to disseminate that, but also bring everybody else up to speed. And I've been like an education hound my whole career, because I think that is what stands in the way from lighting becoming a mainstream important thing that people understand, at least to some level. Because if there's no perceived value, then it's just about price. Right. And that kind of gets into something that Alan, you were saying is, all the prices keep going up, for example, because everybody's working with the same manufacturers in China. But when you look at the difference, let's say, between plumbers and electrical contractors, right? If an interior designer goes up to a plumber and says, hey, I just picked out these faucets, they're $5,000 a piece and I need 10 of them, the plumber goes, cool, right? But an electrical, contractor will be like, well, here's these recessed fixtures, they're $200 a piece. Their immediate reaction usually is, oh, I can get that for 75. Why do we do that? Right? It's because they don't understand the difference.
Right.
And so, that's why it's like, it's going on my grave, probably, like education, but it's so important that if the perception changes to where it's no longer a cost thing and it's a quality thing, that helps the entire industry, and so when you think about, even Chris, your different lines, right?
Right.
That there's a quality difference between one versus another, and you're in a somewhat difficult spot because you can't badmouth one of your companies in order to sell a different one that's a different quality. So that has its own issues. And Alan, you have to deal with quality in terms of not outpricing your place in the market. Right. So maybe Chris, what would you say about how you deal with explaining quality issues? And then Alan, how do you keep yourself priced affordably yet appropriate for the quality level?
Yeah. So I align myself with companies that take care of their problems if there's an issue. I just won't. As Lori had stated, things are so technical now, and it's very important to me as an agency and my integrity as an agent to make sure that I'm representing companies that take care of problems that may occur, and when you're talking about quality issues or whatnot. So, luckily I am in that spot. So, but it's so important to educate, and it's really the LED and all the technology that's been thrown our way. In the last, I want to say 10 years, but really accelerated over the last 5 years. And then you throw in, the whole smart home technology thing. It's really been a big benefit, I believe, to my customers, my showroom customers, because once they learn how to do it and explain that and educate their end user, it really makes them valuable, and there's a big value add. And I've seen jobs that have gone south real fast because something was spec'd incorrectly, and I've had to come in and change stuff out or help fix a job that's been spec'd incorrectly, not by the showroom customer, but by an architect or a designer, right? Yep. Showroom customer or showroom associate will usually come to the rep and ask them for help, and that's usually what we get. But quality is so important, and again, I can't. I honestly just don't have the bandwidth or the time to deal with vendors that don't take care of their issues. So, that's how I go about it. Yeah,
no, it totally makes sense. Alan.
Yeah, so well, I guess I'd answer two questions. So even the first one you asked, just sort of education and how we've changed. I had written down a couple notes, but it's interesting. We see our sales reps typically, it's been for years, at the Dallas market, and that was the opportunity that we got to walk through product and educate. And one of the things out of COVID, just because of all of this teams, we have a town hall, and we probably do it every 8 weeks. And with our national sales manager for lighting showroom division unable to travel, we're able to connect with the salespeople, and it could be anything from product knowledge of new products that are coming out. But that's just one piece of it. It's also just the ability to talk, what's going on in the marketplace, what are the challenges that you're having, and just to get that feedback often, and also just to connect. It was so important to connect with them. So that wasn't an education piece, but there was always education that came out of that just because we were talking, right? Like, it wasn't that we wanted to go 6 months, or in the case of COVID, it was longer than 6 months because we didn't have Dallas, right?
Sure.
So that was a great way for us to stay educated on what was going on in the field as much as they were able to get out. And as we were coming out with new product that we couldn't stand in front of in the Dallas showroom, we had a design team walk through the inspiration behind the product and what materials were used, so that our salespeople weren't going out with just a picture. right? And not really having seen it and touched it, at least they were getting it from the designers. And then, you know, just in terms of value add, I mean, we are not a super techie line. So from a technical aspect, it's more decorative than it is technical. But I think you try to give all those value added things. Like, we have a strong warranty on our products. And quite honestly, we've seen it all the time. If somehow there was a problem, you know, after the warranty, we still stand behind it, because we're going to stand behind our dealer who is standing in front of a customer who doesn't care that the warranty is only whatever, 2 years or 3 years. We always make sure our product is packaged well. It's a comment that we get all the time, that when the consumer gets our product and opens it, they really appreciate how well it was packaged, how good the instruction sheets are to make it easy. You know, it's easy to contact our customer service department and get somebody to walk them through a problem they're having. So it really goes a lot to what Chris is saying. It's like, we have to support our reps, we have to support our dealers. Ultimately, we're supporting the end consumer, and that's what's that's a big part of the focus.
Alan, this is a completely speculative question. I take notes. See, I'm like a total nerd. I take notes. And when you were talking before about costs and the factories in China, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. If there was an American-made incentive, right, and you were able to say, hey, Koizel is now 100% manufactured in the United States. Two parts to this question. Number one, how much do you think percentage-wise that would increase a fixture in general? Like, so if it was $100, what would the increase be? And number two, do you think that would be a benefit to be able to say, hey, we are American-made?
So
Throwing you right under the bus here.
No, I definitely.
That wasn't on his prep form. That's not fair.
Hey, you guys are lucky I didn't ask you, right?
You know, the truth is like, I don't have the answer to that, because I don't know. I'd just be guessing. The truth is that we have not manufactured in the U.S. for so long. Like, I have no idea what the costs are. You know, like, it would be that, where are you going to get people to bend iron? Where are they going to buy the materials? Like, is it coming from the US? Is it coming from China? You know, we know that you're not paying less than $15 an hour. And if you're going to have some craftsmanship, it's going to be well more than that. Yeah. So, you know, I guess the question you're asking is, when does it tip, right? Like, when does it become beneficial to, even with the 25% tariff, even with containers costing $25,000, like, when does it tip in the favor of, should we be looking in the US? And I don't know the answer to that, but my guess is, well, I guess we're not there yet. And even if we are, it takes a long time to build out all of those subcontractors. And the reality is like, we don't run factories, we buy from factories. We have quality control, you know, we have designers that go there, that do inspections, but you know, what exists here in that capacity, you know, we have pollution laws that are different than other parts. Blowing glass is a very dirty business, you know? So I guess the answer is, I don't know. I think that there certainly would be value if you had a high quality product, a high perception of value, but it has to be better, right? Like, you can't have something that looks similar where maybe, you know, it's gotta be a better product. So I think just made in America, you know, almost everything everything we buy today in America, you know, seems to be from China. So it better stand out as something really different with good craftsmanship. And there are, you know, companies that can do it. And I think it can be done. It's just a question of, you know, what is the delta? What is the spread between those two costs? And I don't know the answer to that.
And it's interesting because I think that there's a market for that, it's a very small market. You know, I look at like the interior designers that I work with, and they're specifying fixtures that are, you know, unbelievably unique. You've never even heard of the manufacturers before. It's some dude sitting in his garage bending steel, and they get $50,000 for a chandelier, right? And that's quote normal, right? But while I think that there's a market potentially for that, then it becomes harder for Lori to show that one piece, like which unique piece do you show, which unique piece do you, or pieces do you say, yeah, I'm going to show these, and then they're sitting on your showroom floor for a year because it's so unique and you don't have a customer that's going to buy it. So I get that. Believe me, I think that there's a market for it. But it's very interesting just to see, like, what would happen if ... Going back to the education just for a second. One thing that I've always taught in person and also done obviously online things, but throughout this past year and a half, there's a couple of groups that I've taught for, primarily AV integrators who are trying to learn more about lighting design. And we did a couple of 10-week series of classes. And it was always on the same, it was Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. And they were recorded. So if somebody couldn't make it, great, but they could put them all into their calendar. Right. And the point of it was that you do these, 90-minute to 2-hour classes. And they were really, really successful because they were, I think, through Zoom, they were more interactive. People would ask questions. But what I was thinking about is that even for showrooms, right, can you reach out to, let's say it's, 3 or 4 builders that you know really, really well, or 3 or 4 builders and a couple of the top real estate salespeople in your market, and say, look, we're gonna do an educational class, 45 minutes every Friday afternoon, or whatever day you want it to do, and say, you know what, here's an invitation, and I want you to send it out to your clients, because I think they would really benefit from knowing more about lighting. And I think that there's obviously ancillary benefits to that. Obviously, then anybody that sits and goes through 1 or 2 of those classes might say, wow, you know what? I never really thought lighting was important, but I think I've got to go down to Gross Electric and talk with Lori, right? That's how I think all showrooms, for example, can start to break through that education barrier. I can tell you really quickly. I got my degree in theatrical lighting design, and then I went and worked for the director family at Connecticut Lighting Centers back in the early 90s. Yes, I'm old. And one thing that we did there was we started doing seminars, and it was just kitchen and bath lighting. And we would invite kitchen and bath showrooms, interior designers, and architects. And back in 1995, that generated hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of sales just from people going to those little, wine and cheese party educational events once every couple months, because they understood that the people at Connecticut Lighting Center knew how to do lighting, right? And that they learned something that would make their life easy. And as something that I really suggest for all of the showrooms out there, like if there's a way for you to do that, if you have a very kind of emphatic, interested person who knows how to speak, have that person teach a class. And Lori, going back to what you were saying before, you keep your staff engaged. Like, how cool would it be to say, hey, our speaker of the month is, Jimmy Sassafras, right? and here's Jimmy. And that would be really cool to at least consider. Because again, all of us are always thinking outside of the box. How do we do this? How do we get people engaged and keep them engaged and let them know that we're the ones out there that know what's going on?
Peter, I would just add, it's interesting that you're saying that because, I don't know how long ago it started, maybe 2007, we had done some customer trips to China. And it was fascinating because a lot of people have never seen the manufacturing process. And even in China, like it's still craftsmanship. Like when you see iron being bent or glass being blown or a stained glass lamp with cuts being made and being wrapped in copper foil, like when you see that is added value. And if salespeople, can communicate that to a consumer, they'll recognize that, hey, even though this piece is whatever, $199, my God, there's a ton of craftsmanship that went into it. And so,
Absolutely.
It just goes back to, I think what you're saying is the more educated we are to educate the consumer, the better off I think we'll all certainly be.
Yeah,
And we've done those seminars. I haven't done them on Zoom, but we've done 4 or 5, primarily for architects, designers, and users, anybody. We've gotten anywhere between 20 and 30 people to them, just
That's
teaching
awesome.
the latest and greatest in LED lighting. I haven't tried it on Zoom. I find it hard. I mean, you're a professional, you do it all day long, but we have mini light labs, and it's hard for me to really show people what it's
Right.
doing on Zoom versus them being able to see it in real life.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
it's that part has been difficult, and I haven't figured out how to do it, but we have done them in person, and it's been very, very effective.
Yeah, I agree, Lori. I think the whole Zoom teams trying to show product. I've done a lot of educational product knowledge sessions with showrooms, and it's very difficult to show the product. And you light the LED up and try to figure out how do you show that. I think though, I think that there is. I would say it's already here, but I don't know if it's going to be practiced, real time at some, anytime soon. But I would say within the next 4 to 5 years, I think you're going to be able to put virtual reality goggles on and show product that way. I mean, I see that, it's kind of, out there. But I think that could be like a next step in trying to, get someone, and show product and that kind of thing.
And then the question becomes, is your showroom even valid anymore?
Yeah,
Because
true.
if you can, if I can take a virtual reality of a Quoizel Tiffany and I can put it in their dining room and they can see what it's going to look like, do they still want to come in the showroom and touch and feel it? So, it brings opportunity, but it also brings threats. And then the question is, where's the balance between them?
Good point, Lori.
But I
Good point.
think you're right. I just, you look at the Home Depot ads that they have during all the football games right now, and they're talking about clicking the picture and see how it fits and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So there's no question all that's coming. It's just so many people have a hard time visualizing that.
They
We
do.
hope they continue to come to us. So we'll just see what
Right.
happens.
Absolutely.
And I think that the hardest thing, is most of lighting, like let's say you take decorative fixtures out of the equation just for a second. The entirety of lighting, as we all know, is the mixture of decorative and architectural, right? And the hardest thing to show is architectural lighting. I've always kind of thought about the ineffectiveness, let's say, of a print ad. Because what you really want to say is, here's a kitchen lit like crap, and here's the same kitchen lit really, really well. Which one do you want, right? But that would mean that you'd have to build the kitchen, light it one way badly, and then you'd have to build the kitchen and light it correctly, or find some way of photoshopping the hell out of it. And that's a difficult thing, because other than that, like if you do a print ad and there's a decorative fixture in it, let's say 2 pendants hanging over an island, most people, unfortunately, even architects and interior designers will go, I don't like that fixture, or I love that fixture, right? They're not looking at the quality of the lighting in the space. And it's a very, very difficult thing.
So, but that also gets back to the internet is great in many ways and the internet is horrible in others. And the fact that people, first of all, now you're talking about training AVs. I got the AV guy who thinks he knows how to do lighting. I got a builder who thinks he knows how to do lighting. I got an electrical contractor who thinks he knows how to do lighting. Oh, and by the way, my homeowner spent 10 hours on the internet and they think they know everything there is to know about LEDs. So, not only are you fighting to get them in the door, you're fighting to prove that you're the most educated and you know more than anybody else does. And you should listen to me and know these other 4 people have no idea how to lay out lighting design.
Yeah.
So that's why technology is good, but in so many ways, it was a lot easier in the old days when you just had 15 outlet boxes in a house and you went and picked the prettiest fixtures that you liked the best.
No, it's so true. I mean, Lori, what you're saying, how everybody thinks they know lighting. I have the same thing with my business. It's the architect, the interior designer, the general contractor, the electrical contractor, now the AV people too. I mean, they're technically my competition, and I've always said that everybody thinks that they can do lighting design, right?
Right. And
How do you say that how do you prove that you're doing it better than they do?
and sometimes the fight isn't worth it. Sometimes you just look at them and you go, you go do what you want to do. I just want the decorative package. And sometimes you just can't get into it because you're just, on some of these big jobs I work on, I mean, I spent hours fighting a battle to get a $5,000, recess package or something. And you look at your time value and you go, what did I just do? This was crazy. Let me just sell them their dining room light that's going to be $15,000 and I'll make the same amount of money.
Which gets into the profitability issue.
Right,
I mean,
right.
all of us have been in this for a million years. Remember Molly Claff? Molly Claff was Claff's showroom, and her philosophy, she was down in what is called the Gold Coast of Connecticut, right? Greenwich, Connecticut, right near New York. And she would literally have millionaires lining up to buy $20,000 chandeliers on a Saturday afternoon behind a red rope, right? So everybody waited, and her philosophy was like, I'm not going to get into doing layouts because that kills my profitability when I've got people that are going to, pay a high ticket price for decorative fixtures, and I don't have to deal with any of the crap, right?
But when you look at that, then you're also stuck with, okay, they walked in my showroom, they saw that 20,000 and let me get on my phone and see who else has it at that. So it's that huge balance between what's profitable, but how do I get viewed as an expert? And if I can't talk about this, I'm not going to be viewed as an expert. If I'm not viewed an expert, they don't see any reason to buy that decorative for me. They'll just go online and buy it. So sorry, we got way off topic. Sorry, Peter, you got my blood
this
going.
Is how I always come,
Like,
okay. But just see if I had any other questions. I think we got all of the important things. Yeah. So, all right, one last one for all of you, and we'll go Chris, Alan, and then Lori. So if you had to pick one thing that has made your business better over the last, I don't know, what are we into, 19 months now? We'll just say a year and a half. If there was one thing that you look back and you go, you know what, nailed it. What would you say that thing is?
I would have to say, thinking about it a little bit here. Honestly, I would say that our and my agency's immersion into the technology situation via Zoom and Microsoft Teams, because we had to pivot fast and we had to figure out a way to reach our customers and connect. And we got on that train real fast. I'm fortunate. My son works for a tech company in New York, and when that happened, when the pandemic hit, and he said, "Dad, you got to get onto Zoom now." Because they were already on it. They get on because I was explaining, hey, I can't see anybody, right? So I would say that us and myself and my team learning that real fast. Everybody from my office manager to my quotes person and my outside salesperson, getting on that fast and scheduling meetings with customers. Now everyone's doing it, but I think we were one of the first to adopt that. So I would say that aspect of it for our agency.
Got it. Alan?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest change for us at Quasel, and probably any manufacturer, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know who's adopted it the same way we have, but we never would have, other than COVID and this whole change, for so long, hired sort of key people who did not live in Charleston. And Charleston, although it's grown a lot, it's still a small market, but the talent pool that we could choose from when we go to hire a marketing person, a new salesperson or sales management, even a CFO, like we are so okay with this new environment, and we now can work very efficiently remotely. So that's the biggest change that I don't see changing. Like going forward, I don't think we'll limit ourselves. I mean, we have to figure out what the new work environment looks like, what sort of hybrid model. Are we going to have meetings quarterly in person? And all that hasn't been figured out, but I think what has been accepted and will go forward with, like that's going to stay, is that we don't need people, even in key roles, to live by the corporate office. That's probably the biggest change.
Got it. Lori?
That's a hard question. I mean, I guess I got to take it to my people too. It's all about people. I think that's really what it comes down to, all three of us to a certain extent is.
Yeah.
It allowed us to really step back and look at our people and make sure we had the right people in the right places doing the right things. And I think what we've learned over the last 19 months is to make sure, you know, we're all having a hard time hiring right now, but we're not rushing into hiring people. If it's not the right person for the right job, who's going to have that loyalty, who really cares about us, who cares about customers, then we're not going to make that hire. And so I think that ability to step back and really look at our team and say, this is who we need, this is how we need to grow, this is who we need to add. That's probably what we've gotten out of it the most. Plus piling in the inventory so we have it in stock when they want it.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's you know, it's challenging for all of us. And I say to my wife all the time, like, you know, thank God we don't own a restaurant because we weren't told that we had to shut down. And so I think that as I look back at everything, you know, if again, the one thing that I have found to be a benefit is really that I've been able to explain my design so much more. I keep thinking about that. You know, it's become, I think I have become more of an integral part of the projects because I've become now part of the team, you know, whereas it was just kind of this guy that you give him the plans and all that. And it's I don't know, I think it's been a good thing overall. And we just, you know, we just have to keep working. I mean, I think I'm at a point now where it's like I never try to say no to a project. But I'm looking at like, I'm going to take every project that I can because who knows what's going to happen a year from now, you know, and like I said before, we go the way that the architects and interior designers go. And if they don't have work, we don't have work. So the good thing is that I keep an eye on that and everybody, you know, thank God, is still going crazy right now. All right. So with that, Liz, do you have any questions from the audience?
We do have a couple, and you've kind of covered this. It seems like we have to work harder and harder to make the same amount of profit. What are your best recommendations for streamlining your operation to increase that profit?
I'll answer this one first. I think this is more of a personal response, but I think that when you have to work harder and harder and harder, and I'm the nerd that gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day, reining everything in and putting your life in perspective and realizing what is ultimately important is really the best thing you can do, because we all work so damn hard that I think you get to a point where you're spinning your wheels. So it's still important to rest. It's still important to spend time with your family. It's still important to take a day off, and it's still important to just think of your own health, both mental and physical health, because that honestly, you know, it's so easy to get burnt out. That's all I'm saying. Anybody else?
So actually, it's funny, I just had this conversation with someone this morning. So is it doing the same thing day in and day out and getting the same results that take you forever? Or is it really stepping back? One of the things we got to do with being closed 6 weeks or whatever it was really step back, look at our policies, our procedures, the way we're doing things. Are we doing it most efficiently? Are there things we need to change? We reset our whole warehouse. We reset our whole showroom, you know, to make it better. So is really stepping back. I think it's so important for all of us to have that time to step away from our businesses and really look and say, what am I doing? Just like you said, Peter, the woman who won't do recess, like me stepping back from a job and saying, is this really worth my time and energy? Am I going to make enough money? So I think it's taking that time to analyze your business and figure out what's best in it.
Cool. Chris, Alan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I would add is So one is, it is a great opportunity, as Lori said, to step away. Like you're so caught up with the day-to-day that, you know, you don't have the chance because you're just trying to keep your head above water to really evaluate your business. But if you have the time to do that, again, I think you need to evaluate, you know, do that deep dive. Like where are, again, sort of repetitive to what I said before, but like, where are you making money? Where are you not making money? And how can you enhance those more profitable areas? We know there are certain pieces of the business that are low margin and items that are better margin. I mean, a lot of showrooms sell accessories. A lot of people make money on bulbs. Can you train your salespeople to make sure they sell bulbs and dimmers? And those add-on pieces do add up. Now that comes with training and it comes with intention, but I think you need to look at those things. And you know what, when I started out, I actually worked at Lamps Plus, and I remember they used to have these contests that you had to sell, if they decided to take bulbs, well, then you had to ask them to make sure that they had bulbs on their shelf. And it was like, how could you build on that add-on sale? Those bulbs were super profitable. So I think, again, it's just, again, a deep evaluation of the business and again, really understanding where do you make the money and how can you put more effort into those areas as well.
Yeah, I also think that you touched on it too, Peter. You know, we all kind of go 100 miles an hour, you know, and just go like crazy all the time and get up early and all that kind of stuff. And it's one of the things that the whole pandemic has helped myself personally, and I think a lot of people out there, is just you got to take time to just chill out a little bit, you know. So but we you know, but otherwise you get caught up. I mean, you get caught up in the anxiety of, you know, hey, I sneezed, do I, you know, I have COVID or all that stuff, right? You know, so, and it just starts, it's like a, you know, like a volcano kind of, you know, you start thinking about all the things that you have to worry about. But one thing as an agency that we did, we got together within a couple of weeks of the whole shutdown and met as a team and just, you know, said, look, we're not going backwards. We're going to go forward. This is not going to be a negative. We're going to continue to sell. And thank God, maybe like as Lori has indicated, California, they didn't shut the construction industry down. If they did that, it would have been really lights out. It would have been bad. So they kept everything going. And we were determined to not go backwards, and it proved in our profitability and the numbers that we delivered for the vendors that we represent. So
Cool. Liz, any other questions?
One more, and we talked about the value of lighting versus the price of good lighting. And are there any specifics about how you were able to communicate that to your customers? Were there particular strategies that really seemed to work better?
I'll go first. Again, and I'll say this because, again, I don't sell and supply product, but when a client, when I'm explaining to them why they should use a particular fixture over another, and we'll say recess fixtures for example, you know, I do try my best to explain to them the difference in quality, like the difference between dimming from, you know, 100 to 10% to 100 to 1%. Why is that important? Why is color important? And coming up with ways to help them to understand that in a non-technical manner, right? That's always the key, because you can't always mock things up, especially now, you know, and you've got to be able to explain it. So I think that for me, where the value and the cost becomes important, is kind of twofold. My services, my design services, I try to explain the value of that is insurance. It's insurance that all the money you're putting into everything else in your house, whether it's a product or building it or anything else, the furniture, I'm going to make sure it looks good, right? And you're not going to screw it up. And then the value of the product, I've really tried to help people to understand, because again, even really affluent people, they care about their money. Like, they're not just going to willy-nilly spend money unless it's like an end table, right? and so, you know, getting them to understand the difference between, you know, what lighting should cost versus what they think it should cost, and talking about things like national averages, percentages, you know, 2 to 5% of a $10 million house is a lot of money. But if you say, you know, it's $100,000 worth of recessed fixtures, that people go, oh my God, all that for cans, right? But then helping them to understand that it's a percentage of the construction costs, and how important is that? That's kind of how I you know, try to help them understand value.
So I try and illustrate it as much as I can. I try and get them in the showroom. So we'll just take the most popular quote surface / recess lights, which I think, Peter, you were the one that called them white heads on the ceiling.
Yep.
That I use that phrase all the time. But I have that on my showroom floor. And then I have the shallow pop-in recess that are glare bombs, and I have those on my showroom floor. And then I'll say to a customer, here's this, and here's what I want you to buy. Which do you like better? They always pick the recess.
Always.
They
Yep.
always. And I'll say, now I'm going to tell you right now, I've got these 3 different kinds of recess. Here's what they look like. Here's the price differences. Which one do you want? And which one are you going to spend the money on? And then they'll go back and say to their contractor, I don't want those things you're going to put up there. I want this. And Gross has them, or they'll buy them from me right there and
Right.
hopefully take them home. But it's really showing. It's a show and tell game. And hopefully, I mean, there's a lot of times I don't have that opportunity. They're already in. But if I have the opportunity, I do show and tell. And that's how I really get around the price value type of thing. And when it comes to decorative lighting, you have to kind of do the same thing. You know,
100%.
this is a great fixture, but look at the connection to the top of the fixture versus this other one that's $100 more. When you're sitting at your dining room table and you're looking at that, and I just pointed it out to you, is it going to drive you nuts? Yeah, now that you pointed it out to me, okay, great, let's buy the other one. So those are the kind of little things that can get the sale that really shows people, you know, it helps sell the value versus the price.
Yeah. Even with things like the recess fixtures, I mean, I have made the comment before that if it's a low priced, low quality recess fixture, you know, I'll say to them, look, if your builder came to you and said, we're going to use Formica for all your countertops, would you accept that? And they go, of course not. And they go, well, this is Formica. You just have to, you know,
I'm going to use that.
you can use that. You can all use that. Everybody that's on this, you can use their Formica. No offense to Formica. They're a great company, but you have to put it into perspective because they don't understand. To them, it's a can, right? It's a hi-hat, but there's a difference when you're talking about the quality there. And I found that helps because they just don't know otherwise. Anything else, Liz?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks everybody for taking part in this. Hopefully we've made you see that there's some light, no pun intended, at the end of the tunnel. We're gonna get through this. We're all gonna do well. And then next year we're all gonna meet in person right at the next ALA conference. No forest fires.
No forest fires. Yeah.
Stop those forest fires in California. Yeah.
We actually got, we had like 5 inches of torrential rain come through, and we're good now. We're good until next summer.
Only a month and a half late, but that's
right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you guys.
I hate to say it, but like in the last 5 years, it's been what? Zika was Puerto Rico. And then, sorry for all of you ALA employees, like going, oh my God, why is he bringing this? But it was Zika, and then it was COVID, and then it was forest fires. So massive flooding next year? Is that, Liz, can you put that on schedule?
Yeah.
Flooding, herd of locusts, you know, we don't know.
I like it. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.